Welcome back. I have another phenomenal guest for us today. He has a PhD in engineering. He also was an engineer at NASA. Some stuff I definitely want to ask him about. He was a creator of the dating platform Zoosk. Is he say Zook? Zoosk.
Yeah.
And then also he partnered up with Tai Lopez for Mentorbox. He is currently the creator of Deal.AI. Please welcome Dr. Alex Mehr to the program. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Like a lot of other people, 67 Steps comes out. Tai is doing all this stuff, and he brings you on as his business partner. And I listened to some of your interviews, and it's really, really great stuff. Did you immigrate from Iran? Were you born in Iran? Oh, so was it the 1979 revolution? Like, when did you come?
I was born right at when the revolution happened.
Okay.
And then I moved to the U.S. when I was 21 years old.
So you lived there for 21 years, and then came here.
I did my undergrad and moved here for grad school.
Okay, so undergrad in physics
correct, engineering and physics
in Iran, and then you come here. You Maryland Terrapin. You get a PhD in engineering. Was your intention like you went to go when you come over here? I'm just curious, how does it work? My mother is a Colombian, and she came over in 1974 because she had a nursing degree, and there was a shortage of nurses in this country because of the Vietnam War, and she was able to get a green card that way. It was your PhD in engineering? Is that how you ended up moving over permanently?
Yeah. So I mean, that was my life goal, anyways. Regardless of when I was when I was 5 years old, if you asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, I would have said I want to immigrate to America, work for NASA as a scientist.
Beautiful.
So
Incredible. Okay, what kind of obviously I have a background in physics, and I flew for the Air Force for 7 years. What specifically did you do at NASA?
I worked did multiple things, but it started with risk management for aerospace systems.
Okay.
So that was how I started.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Were you living in Houston?
No, in Moffett Field.
Okay.
Yeah,
Moffett,
California.
Okay, Moffett. Yeah. The Air Force base is out there. That's
yeah,
right,
exactly. Yeah. It's on an Air Force base, and it is. I work for the computational sciences division.
Nice.
So I built models for space missions, probability of loss of mission, probability of loss of crew, and stuff like that.
Jim Simons, the guy who runs the Medallion Fund.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, most successful hedge fund manager. So his degree, I believe, is in some like advanced mathematics, and his executives are all physicists. He hires physicists to work there. And one thing I explain to people is like, whereas an accountant can forensically look at finance, you'll have a guy in finance who tries to predict through models of what is going to happen in the future financially. And a lot of the times these financial firms hire physicists because physicists are good at modeling. I was listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about how much code he had to write when he was getting his PhD. Physicists are good at using computers to model what the future is going to be like. And so essentially, like, that's why you would hire physicists for some of these different approaches.
Exactly right. So, I mean, they're good at approximation. So obviously the real world is too complex. So physicists are really good at simplifying it into models that are, not too, like Einstein said, make things simple, but not too simple.
Sure.
So that's a good model.
Yeah.
That's a hallmark of a good model.
Yeah. In astronomy, it's a little easier because you have objects flying through space. Like when Johannes Kepler's observations, these are planets that they don't bump into anything.
Right.
It's the same orbit every year for millions of years. But on Earth, there's a lot more variables because of the gravity well and because of the environment. So yeah, it's really interesting when you see that so many financial people hire physics majors. I don't know if you know Fisher DeBerry, who won the Nobel Prize for the Fisher-Black model. That's how they price options. He was a physicist. Charlie Munger has an undergrad. He studied physics before he became a lawyer, and then also Jim Simons also has a background in physics and mathematics. So I thought that was an interesting thing. So you immigrate, you get a job at NASA. What's the application system like to go work at NASA? How does that work?
It actually came through a referral. So this was right after a Columbia accident.
Okay.
So they were looking for people who specialized in modeling complex systems.
Okay.
And that was literally my PhD topic.
Is this 03?
No, this is 05.
05, okay.
So 04, they reached out to me. I started January of 2005.
Wow. Okay. And then at that point, you still have an SDS program. That was part of what you were working with?
Yes.
Yeah. And then later on canceled it. Now we just send them up in the Soyuz capsule, although we don't do that anymore now. Because of the Russians.
SpaceX hopefully does that now.
SpaceX will handle that. All right, so you're there, and then at that point, there's a point while you're working in NASA that you realize you want to become an entrepreneur?
I was thinking about it before I joined, and then during that time period, I had the time to start playing And 2 years after I started working for NASA, I was like, I'm going to take the leap.
Yeah. And one of the things I thought was really great was that you were basically looking for anything that was web-based and trying to turn it into an app.
Correct.
And you were going for one thing after another. What were some of the ideas that you had before Zoosk?
Oh, we did a lot of gaming apps. We did a lot of quizzes.
Yeah.
A lot of them. We were always top 10 apps on Facebook for weeks. And quizzes, apps, everything you can imagine on the web. We were just playing with it. And we ended up on online dating, and that took off, and we just shut down everything else.
I remember when I was given Tai a ride home. I think we were at Access one night. This was like maybe 10 years ago. And he was explaining to me, he talked to me about you. He talked about the online dating thing. And he talked about, he has his book club, right? He has his book list. He sells books off that list, off Amazon. He's like, I'm still making money off this as well. The online dating thing. Did you have any issues with like terms of service? Like, how did it work? Like, what was there was a right swipe, left swipe. What was your original idea with Zoosk?
No, it was not right swipe, left swipe at the beginning. It was more about data-driven matchmaking. That was the core of the idea. So there's a ton of studies on if people can predict what they're looking for in a mate, and how uncorrelated what they think they're looking for is to who they actually end up with.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it was like, okay, so instead of having a form at the time, all online dating sites, they had forms. So you went and filled out, I'm looking for blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So we were like, none of that. So let's just take your data, who you approach, who approaches back to you, and then put that in a model and just try to predict who's the best match for you.
Wow.
So we called it behavioral matchmaking. So,
Incredible.
Yeah, we were
Very
kind
cool.
of pioneer in that.
Very nice. Now you see a lot of those dating sites, and it's just like short-term hookup.
Yeah, I know.
And like every year, the girls on there it gets worse and worse because women don't want to be on this, and it's like 6-to-1 guys to girl ratio on some of these websites. It's really weird how that whole eco structure. It started off kind of being 50-50, and then just it went on to where it's like very difficult to use some of those apps.
Almost all women have a bad experience, and 80% of men have a bad experience.
Isn't that
20% of men are doing great.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you bring that up. So the recent survey, Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge, they talked about 80% of men deemed unattractive on dating apps. The top 10% of men on a dating app. So if you stratify by right swipes, they get 63% of the right swipes. I mean, if you guys know anything about stats, that's ridiculous. Like that's
ridiculous.
That's an absurdly high number.
Yeah.
The top 20% get 83%. So that's 1.5 standard deviations that go to 20% of men.
Right.
But when you compare it to women, or when you compare it to men, the top 63% of right swipes for men go to 43% of women. So men do still have a little bit of like, inflation. So like if you live in San Diego or Los Angeles, a girl who might be an 8 in Waco, Texas is like a 6 in Las Vegas. For sure, you're going to have a little bit of that. But for the most part, men find 5s to be 5s, 6 to be 6s, 7s to be 7s, whereas women finds 8s to be 5s, 7s, 9s to be 7s, and there's only one 10. It's Drake and like Chris Hemsworth. Those are the only 10s that exist, right? It's one of these things where social media has made it to where a lot of women, where they date one movie star and then eventually, or they sleep with one movie star and then they compare every man they date to that because they had access to it because of social media. And then it just makes, I was reading somewhere at 6,000 swipes to get one date for a woman, some crazy number like that. And the vast majority of women on these dating apps are not even going on dates. They're just doing it for attention or to get people to go down their OnlyFans funnel so that they can get subscribers.
Instagram, OnlyFans, yeah.
It's pretty amazing how that whole thing changed. It was very like, when it first started, it was very like, people had a very positive idea of how this was going to work and like change the idea of dating. But like it actually, it still has some positivity to it. But I think Instagram's probably the biggest dating app in the world now. So at what point do you figure, like, how long do you have this? Obviously you have it, you sell the program or you sell the company for $258 million. What point are you approached? Is this the first offer you took? Were there other offers? Like how does that whole work? 'Cause I'm sure a lot of people would want to know. First off, do you eliminate your role? There's another thing you talk about, automating myself out of the business. At this point, have you automated yourself out of Zoosk so you can, so you have to do that first before you're able to sell it.
Well, we had offers when I was actively running it too.
Okay.
But we decided not to sell at that time. And I eventually, I replaced myself. So, and then the offer came, and I'm not even sure if it was a good decision to sell it, honestly.
You think you could have held on for more?
Yeah.
Yeah. or maybe like spun off some other stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We'll do more acquisitions with it.
It is pretty amazing how all those dating sites are owned by like the same company now.
That's right.
By the way, all the porn sites are owned by the same company as well. You see this like this horizontal integration when it comes to a lot of this
It
stuff.
makes sense. I mean, there are a lot of synergies. You can dominate the affiliate offers and affiliate networks, so it makes a lot of sense to combine them.
Yeah. It is pretty nuts. So the offer came from who? Like I think a lot of people out there want to know, where do you get the email for the $258 million offer? How does that work?
It was 2 or 3 years in the making.
Yeah.
So the company that bought it was looking into buying our company for a long time.
Yeah.
And we were able to eventually structure a deal.
Okay.
That
Did you take shares?
We took cash and shares.
Okay.
So it was a public company.
Yeah.
So.
I remember, so this has been like, I guess, 2001 when Mark Cuban sells audionet.com for $5 billion to Yahoo, and he takes shares. He sees the writing on the wall that there's going to be a .com crash, so he buys puts on all his shares to protect his position. And it's also not a taxable event. So it actually, because he doesn't have to sell the shares. So that's one thing that he did. So it's interesting because another friend of mine named Tom Sosnoff, he sold his company. It's called Tastyworks. He sold it to IG Networks, and then they sold it to Nadex. I think that's what it is, because they wanted. There's a crypto company that wanted to have like SEC compliance or whatever, and then he ended up buying the company back. But they gave him all shares. He became the biggest shareholder in the company that bought his company, and then he sits on the board for them. So I thought that was interesting how that works. I think a lot of people don't understand that concept of like buying things with,
especially
equity.
Public companies. I mean, that's the main reason, in my opinion, to take a company public.
Yeah.
Because you can use your stock as currency to buy other companies.
Yeah. Incredible. Incredible. All right. So can we go into this also? One of the best books I've read, probably the best book I read this year, is Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time. How do you automate yourself out of different positions here? I'm sure you're probably not coding at this point.
Right.
You're doing different things. How do you find the right people to help you build a business?
So it's become a lot easier for me over the years because I have a deep network.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, it was when I was building Zoosk, it was a lot of UT Austin grads.
Welcome.
So yeah, so it was like we hired 2 of them, and then they recruited their classmates, and it just grew that way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, beautiful.
yeah,
Computer science.
Computer science.
Yeah.
Engineers. And that to me is like an organic way of doing it. So have your employees, have them like the mission of your company, and then have them recruit other people into your company.
Yeah, Layla Hermosi talks about that a lot too. She's like, we started running ads to try to find salespeople, just because exactly what you're saying. We're at the point now where the leads exceed what we can handle, and we need better people in the company. So we're running ads for people,
Right.
running ads for team members instead of running ads for leads, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, we do the same. We hire our salespeople through ads.
Yeah. We're trying to hire salespeople through people who come through the entire program.
Right.
So there's like about 2,700 people that are going through now, and we're trying to figure out which ones are the best. Because whenever we get somebody internally, I'm sure it's the same thing for Tai. When you get someone that's like a zealot, like a real heavy into Tai's book list and all this kind of stuff, did 67 sets, did SMMA, they're probably better salespeople, because they're not selling, they're saving.
Right.
That's the way they would look at it. So now is there a point, what is the timeline? You do the $258 million deal, and then do you meet Tai Lopez before or after that? How does that work?
I had known him for a long time. I met him in 2009 or 10, I would say. And we were friends at that point for a long time. Yeah.
And so you were going up to the parties in the hills? You
went
at some
to
of
a
those?
few of them.
You went to a few of those parties? Those were a good time.
Yeah, I'm not a party person, but yeah, I went to a few of those.
That house, do you remember, not the one on Rexford, but the one, because I know you did some videos at the house on Rexford. Do you remember the one he had before that was up higher in the hills?
Yes.
That house is replicated on Grand Theft Auto. And one of the developers from Grand Theft Auto was at one of the parties I was at, and I was sitting at the house. You know how they have like kind of that infinity pool, and there was a balcony like above it. I was sitting there looking at this house, and I was like, "Bro, something is weird. Why do I feel like I've been at this house?" And then you know how the whole back is just glass, and I was like, and then the garage was over here on the left. I'm like, dude, I've seen this house somewhere before. It's Franklin Clinton's house in the Grand Theft Auto, and I showed it to Tai one time. I was like, Tai, this is your house. It's in this video game. It's exactly this house. Same view of downtown, everything. It's exactly the same.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And then he goes and gets that house on Rexford, which was beautiful. I love that place. I threw a party there one time with Dan Fleischman. It was great. I would go over there and play basketball. Other people were like, hey, Tai, let's talk about business. I'm like, Tai, can I go hoop at your house?
Yeah.
I just want to go play basketball.
Right.
It was a really good time. So you and Tai, where do you come up with the idea? Say, hey, we're going to do something, because it had huge effect on me. The idea of a Mentorbox. Where did you guys come up with the idea for that?
It was an iteration. So at the time, I was launching essentially subscription boxes. If you remember, there was a whole explosion of them.
Yes.
So I was working on a subscription box company that sent people supplements as a subscription. And then Tai and I were talking, and we were like, okay, so but the problem is it's not differentiated, and it's hard to actually grab market share. Let's do a box subscription that nobody has done, and that's how Mentorbox came about. So.
And can you describe like what it was? So the idea was that you would get these books, but you would also get an additional, almost like when you see the director's cut of a movie, how the director does the overlay. It's a similar situation where you would have certain authors. Did you do any with David Buss? Did you have David Buss do any commentary?
I did, yeah.
Okay, I would love to get that. That's pretty amazing. Was it on Evolution of Desire?
I want to say it was Evolutionary Psychology.
Okay. So the textbook.
Yeah,
okay, got it.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had him come to San Francisco, and we shot the video. So we essentially shot a video, 7-minute and 15-minute versions a lot of times, of the author going through the main points of the book. So you can just listen to it on the treadmill working out or just watch it. So
I've gone through Evolution of Desire for the 3rd time now, and there's so much incredible stuff in that book. Like every time you go back and read it, and the most recent edition was 2016. 30% of men on Tinder are married. Like that is still mind blowing to me. Like when you consider like marriage as an institution, 30% of men on a dating app for short-term hookups are married. And then when you look like Ashley Madison, it was 98% of the people on there were men.
I mean, that was yes.
It went
Makes
crazy,
sense.
and then it was like 2% were women, and all the accounts were fake. The number of women I know now that have been paid to go on new dating apps to just pretend like they're open to dating when they're married with kids is shocking. Every time there's a new one, they would pay people to do it, and it was just a really interesting thing.
Yeah.
So you guys come up with the idea, Mentorbox, and then how do you market it? Just an idea. Did you have a high ticket offer, low ticket offer? Like how did that
Low
whole thing
ticket.
work?
So my approach is, I call it carpet bombing the internet.
Yes.
So I design offers, products that a lot of people want, and then I essentially carpet bomb the internet. I build the frequency and reach in our customer base, and eventually I get people to convert in droves.
Okay, so this thing that you talked about with Jordan Belfort, I loved it, on his whiteboard. The concept of how to price your product. So you talked about there's an optimal price, and you move a little bit to the left below that because you get more people.
That's
Can you
right.
go into that?
Yeah, so I mean, people try to maximize their revenue by increasing the price. That's a common mistake that I see. And really, you got to look for the optimal price and have in mind that you can capture more of it's called the willingness to pay curve in economics. So the area under that curve, if you had perfect pricing model, you could capture the entire area under the curve. But you obviously can't, because you can't adjust the price based on the person walking in.
Right.
So the best model would be if someone walks in, I know exactly how much that person is willing to pay for that product and just put that price for that particular person.
That's like what car salesmen try to do.
Yeah, exactly. They try to gauge.
Try to gauge price, yeah.
But online, you can't do that. So what you do is that some people they think if they charge more, they will make more, and that's a mistake.
Yeah.
Some people try to maximize revenue, and they forget that they can have 2, 3, 4 price models. So you don't have to capture all of that area with one price point. So you can capture a small percentage to the left of the optimal price point. So you capture that, and then you have add-ons and add-ons and add-ons and upsells, and that's how you capture most of the curve.
Okay, so one of the most successful things people I've seen do that recently in the last couple of years was Andrew Tate with his Hustle University, and then his upsell was called War Room. Hustle University was $47 a month. He gave 50% commissions to his affiliates, and that's where he blew up, because not only was he making the money off recurring revenue, it was only the first month where you got 50% commission, which is a lot of money, if you can do that over and over again, and you live in Nepal or Romania, or you live in a place like Namibia, or I have one of my assistants is from Iraq. If you can do that consistently, that's a pretty good way to make a living. And then what they were doing was then collating his content, and then they were turning it into more viral content, which got him in trouble at some point, because they a lot of times they would take him out of context, but it would be some guy in Singapore who was just making clips and trying to go viral. And then they would have a referral link, and it would go back, and then they would sell more of the low ticket subscription. And then Then from there, they would go through and they would have outbound guys go through, and then they would find, do you want to pay $8,000 per year to be in the war room, which was more of like a community accountability network, that kind of thing. What do you think about that type of low ticket, high ticket, setters, closers type of funnel? I've seen that become a little bit more prevalent recently.
Yeah, and I've built a few of those. So the best way is actually to put one other price point in the middle.
In the middle, okay.
Yeah. So you want to kind of graduate. As you build credibility, you prove to people that your product is valuable. You want to start low, that's for sure. I know for a fact that you have to start to the left of the optimal price point, and then you build to the top slowly. If you think of the willingness to pay curve, if I had a whiteboard, I would have shown it to you. So you essentially capture, it's like triangles, right? So you capture, it's a curve that looks like this. I'm going to try to demonstrate. There's a first price point is like a triangle that looks like that. Yeah. And then second price point is a triangle that looks like that. And a third. So if you jump too much to the right, you're missing the middle area.
You lose too much. Yeah. There's a middle area that you're missing. Okay. So for us, we have 3 price points. We have 6, 11, and 20. We're going to do a low ticket offer, but right now we have a free group that we do. And then we do free calls like every other week. And that's helped us as far as leads are concerned. One of the big issues that we've had is that unqualified leads will take up the time of our sales team, and that ends up costing us money. We had Ryan Panetta on here the other day, and he was talking with Neil Patel about this, and they kind of came up with this idea that $3,000 is the price point where you need a sales team. Past $3K.
2,500.
Yeah, 2,500. Yeah. Below that, you can do a low ticket offer, and they can just push a button and give a credit card, so that you understand the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think under $1,000 you can do self checkout.
Yeah.
Funny enough, we have done even 2,500 self checkout.
Yeah.
But really, the price point is like under $1,000 you can do self checkout.
Yeah.
$699, $499, or lower.
Yeah.
And the price points to me goes like $10 a month.
Yeah.
Then it goes to $19.95. Then my favorite price point, $29.95.
Okay.
Then it goes $49, then it goes $69, then it goes $99, then it goes $199, $299, then skip to $499, then you go to $699, then you go to $999.
Interesting. So you don't do the 97, because I've seen some
$99 and $97 are the same thing.
99 and 97 are the same thing.
Yeah, I've tested it multiple times.
Okay.
It's the same.
They come out the same. Yeah. Interesting. This is the same kind of situation. So I'm curious, like, initially, our intent with the low ticket is just to break even, but just to have better leads.
Right.
But it seems like, from what I've seen, with 67 steps, which would be, that was $67 a month, or in our case, I think we're going to do $47, $49, or in the case of, like, say, Hustle University, or it's called the Real World now because they lost a bunch of their point of sales, and they had to switch over to a new name. In those cases, they're doing $20 million a month, like insane numbers, 200,000 people recurring revenue, and there was no live calls. Everything was just a video format, which is very similar to how 67 Steps was. If you were part of, like, social media marketing agency, there's several folders that were up there, and then he would consistently update the folders, which is a model that I'm using now. Do you think? So I guess the question I'm asking is, we're making most of our money from a high ticket offer.
Right.
Would you recommend people like have it split, like a third, change your pricing to where you're getting more from one or less from another? Or should you just be using your low ticket for lead gen and making most of your money from high ticket?
So whatever you make, I call it the core product.
Okay.
So the first thing that you sell. Whatever you make from that, you can triple it with upsells. That's
with
kind
upsells.
of, yeah. So that actually helps you gauge how to price the first product too, because whatever you might make on that, I want to say, if you do a good job, you can even quadruple, but triple is more like what you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, our initially was 1,500, now it's 6,000.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we've quadrupled the price over the last couple of years.
Yeah. So one way to think about it is that you have your first price point after that, 25% take rate, 4 times the price. That doubles the value. Then the one after that, the same thing. So that triples.
What about recurring? So I've seen this happen a lot where guys will pay 8, 10, 20K for a 6-month, 12-month, or 3-month program. Right. And then afterwards, you want to keep them in there, some sort of alumni program. Hermosi talks about recurring revenue. Obviously, this is the model that Netflix or a gym uses. Do you have a lower price point for stay with us forever kind of thing?
So try to make your first product recurring if it makes sense.
Yeah.
That's what I try to do.
Yeah.
And the first product recurring, second product not recurring. Third product you can consider recurring again.
Okay.
So
You can have it recurring, but,
Yeah.
but would you offer at a lower price point?
On which one?
So
But in return, so it's like a higher price point or recurring lower price
Yeah.
point.
So let's say you do like Ryan Pineda does a $10,000 real estate one. Let's just say it was 6 months. At the end of the 6 month period, could he do a $200 a month recurring forever?
Yeah, but I don't think that works that well.
No.
No. So you got to get the commitment. So, so it's like depends on what we're doing. So in Mentorbox, I even went down in price. So our third price point was lower.
Interesting.
But it serves a different purpose.
Yeah.
So for example, and some of it is mechanical. So if you sell, let's say, an annual subscription right up front, right? That credit card is not charged for a year. The chances of it going through after a year is low. But if you have a optional monthly subscription, low price point, and that credit card is charged every month, the likelihood of that yearly working is higher.
Yeah.
So it's like a very mechanical. So you want to pair long-term subscriptions with short-term low-price subscriptions.
Got it. Okay. Do you have when your high ticket, whatever you would have, would you include everything that's in the low ticket as well?
Yeah, but people don't really care about it. So high ticket people, they are buying into a bigger thing.
Yeah.
So the bells and whistles, little things don't really matter.
So what I've seen is the lowest ticket is going to be just a video program with like very little community, no feedback. The second tier thing is going to be something where there's group coaching, maybe Zoom calls, something like that. Maybe even some in real life events that you're allowed to come to, and a community and feedback and accountability. And then third tier is one-on-one access to whoever the highest guys in the mastermind are. That's what I've seen work. I don't know if you see your tier group working like that.
For info products. So I'm trying to build software, and I've had better success with software compared to info products. Software is a slightly different dynamic.
Yeah.
So depends on what you're selling, really.
Neil Patel talked about this, about giving away free software in order to get leads. Can you talk about that? Has that worked out for you?
I mean, it works. I prefer to charge a tiny amount for it. That's my preferred approach. But free works too. So giving software, at least for a free trial, like ClickFunnels is a good example.
Yeah.
And then you charge a subscription, makes a lot of sense. You cannot do that with info products.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work that well.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I guess you maybe I've seen a lot of guys sell ebooks at the lowest possible price. I've seen that happen before.
Yeah, but that's more like a lead gen. Let me get the lead as quickly as I can so that my sales team can call it. It's different.
So for me, there's two parts to this, because everything above the 3K, I need a phone sales team, which is the toughest scalable part of my business. It is the most difficult part to scale, is having qualified salespeople.
Right.
Really good salespeople are that's the $25 million a year left tackle on your football team that plays there for 15 years.
Right.
The whole team is kind of built around him. Really good salespeople are that's why I try to hire from within the company, because I want them to have extra reason to stay with us forever. Finding those people has been the hardest part of selling. But like what I've seen is with the low ticket stuff, at least what our attention is for later on for my setters. If I have 5,000 guys in the low ticket, for them to be able to go and go to them, as opposed to this unqualified stuff that's coming in where my setters are spending all their time, talking to people who have no business, they just can't, it's not no business, but like somebody from India or Brazil who cannot afford a $5,000 product. And that's something that I'm really trying to do is because I see their time getting drug into these positions that I don't want them in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the software, so now you're in that situation, and you do the Mentorbox thing. Are you still selling? Is that still going on?
Yeah, it does. It is. Yeah.
Awesome. And then from there, the idea, so you're doing, there's a couple things. It is the Website Funnel Academy. Is that what it is? The WFA?
No.
What is it called?
I don't know what it is.
You know what I'm talking about? The funnel thing that you and Ty were talking about like a couple months ago? You guys were going over the funnel?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing is Deal.AI. So you're using artificial intelligence. How does that work?
So we built a platform. I think there's a huge wave of baby boomers retiring.
Sure.
And they own about 40% of small businesses in the U.S. It's about $10 trillion worth of assets. It's going to change hands.
Sure.
And we built an AI platform, helps you find them, do due diligence on it. You can put in an offer, and we even help you with connecting with banks to get financing.
We're talking about their homes?
No, businesses. Like you're talking about plumbing companies, roofing companies, all sorts of these businesses.
So
across
good
America.
established businesses that may,
Yes.
some of them may be brick and mortar. We're always
Yes.
going to need plumbers. We're always going to
Yeah.
need carpenters like that.
Yeah, decades in business. The owners, 60s, 70s, sometimes 80s, years of cash flow,
Got it.
and they're retiring, and their kids aren't taking over. So you can buy it for a relatively good price, and just run it.
Yeah.
So
In general, again, we had Neil on here, and when he was talking about, he says people are overestimating what AI or machine learning can do now and underestimating what it will be able to do in 50 years. What do you think it can do now? What do you think you?
it can do a lot. It's actually kind of surprising.
Yeah.
So I played with AI during my PhD many years ago. I'm talking about 2002 and 3. And neural nets obviously have been around for a long time, but the leap that happened in the, let's say 2017, 2019 really, until now is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I always hire people by giving them case studies. Like I give them brain teasers, same brain teasers, right? So I've done it for years. I started giving it to AI early this year.
Yeah.
And it solves it. It actually thinks like a person you can recruit,
Yeah.
essentially. If it was a human, that person is hireable.
Yeah.
Now it's better than humans. So it can do it better than humans.
I think you read Ray Kurzweil's book, The Singularity is Near. He talks about there's this point at which you're going to have a 1.0 brain. Like basically the AI is going to equal a human brain. And the part that I think people miss on that is what happens is the feedback loop to a 1.01 brain happens instantly.
Yes.
Because the brain then can write its own code to improve itself. But the thing is the 10x brain is now within a few hours. The 100x brain happens within a few minutes after that. And then the 1 millionx brain is the week later.
Right.
And so that's why it's called a singularity, is because when you get to 1.0, there is no going back ever.
Yes.
For anyone, for any reason. There is. And then the other concept that I think is like, to me, I feel like it's a little bit naive, is when people are trying to curtail this movement. The only thing scarier than the United States having artificial intelligence is China having it before us. So we're gonna have artificial intelligence.
Yes.
People need to get over this idea that we're gonna somehow stop it. But the thing is, it's inevitable. Humans are going to choose the path of least resistance.
Right.
Having a computer anticipate all of our thoughts and anticipate what we want is something humans are going to opt into.
Right.
They're going to play to type. That's essentially what we do. Hairless murder apes. So we're gonna go that way. So what I think the issue is, like, when we get to that point, how much autonomy do we give over to them? Because my concern is this, right? If you look at the dopamine spikes that people get from playing video games, watching movies, looking at pornography now, and you consider that, like, say, for instance, we create some artificial intelligence, we'll just call it Thor. You give it the directive, Thor, make as many people happy as possible. And Thor comes out and they like de-incentivize population, right? And then they are like, well, we do these things to like make people happy all the time, 24 hours a day. And you're sitting there in your holodeck and you're like living your dream life. And then all of a sudden, the day you're in your holodeck, the AI takes over the entire world, but
Right.
you don't give a fuck because you're in
Right.
your holodeck and you're like having the best time of your life. And I think people think it's going to be iRobot and it's going to be some kind of war. It's going to be Skynet and it's going to be a nuclear war. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think it'll be more like you're just having a great day. You know, the AI has made your life perfect and you just don't even care that it took over.
But why do you say that? Because there are going to be many versions of AI models running, right? So let's say one of them comes to the conclusion that I have to dupe humans by keeping all of them happy.
Sure.
Another one says, I'm going to achieve whatever is the objective by eliminating humans.
Yeah.
So do you think the first AI will go defend humans against the second AI?
That could be it.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah.
But I also think what'll happen is we're going to get to a level of cognitive ability that are petty inputs that Homo sapiens give to the AI that just laughs them off. It's like it's developed to a certain level of cognitive ability that's so far beyond anything else that it almost gets the point of like grandeur. You know what I'm saying? That would be my concern.
I think it will get there.
Yeah.
So if anybody who plays with AI seriously would know it is actually sometimes scary.
Yeah. How quickly it comes back with stuff.
It's insane. We use it. We build AI applications. And it's if last year you told me that we could build this application with AI the way I tell you this, 2015, I tried to build an AI version of Slack. And we wanted to use, I want to say 15, maybe 15 or 16. We used IBM Watson, and I started playing with it. It was so dumb, like it was insane. And from there to here, it's a leap that people who have not played with AI, they can't appreciate how much it has jumped, but it's insane right now.
We had a company go through and scrape my entire course and then put it into an AI chatbot, and I ask it questions, and it's about 85% of the way there. Like, it's frightening.
Yeah.
Now, there is a little bit of ChatGPT wokeness in there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, when I ask, like, it gives
That's
answers.
going to get eliminated.
Yeah. It's just like, there's answers in there. It's like, make sure you get compliance from everyone and everyone feels safe. And I'm like, I didn't fucking say that.
You can you can put it in your prompt engineering.
Yeah.
So you can say, don't do this, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me like I'm blah, blah, blah.
But I've noticed that there's like, when I see other people in their baseline stuff, it's like there's just a little bit of fucking progressive wokeness in every answer.
100%.
And so that's one thing that I've seen. Well, I'm going to switch subject here because this is something I think is really interesting. My mother immigrated to the United States in the early 1970s, and her family did. Some of them claimed asylum. They were Colombian. And you talked about early assimilation when you come into the country, because the difficulty, I have a client the other day, I was just having a discussion with him where I was explaining to him, I'm like, you have an accent and you're explaining something very complicated. And it's very difficult for people to understand what you're saying. And I'm just trying to help you. I really do want to help. You mentioned something before about how important it was in assimilation when you came into the country.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I love this country. Even when I was a kid, I read stories of George Washington and Ben Franklin. I always wanted to move to America. I loved the concept of America. So when I came here, I mean, I couldn't speak very well. I couldn't understand what was going on TV, for example. I could read and write, but took me a solid 6 months to learn my way around. But yeah, so it's important to assimilate. It's important to, as an immigrant, first generation immigrant, to both learn how to navigate and just become part of the community that you just immigrated to. So
yeah, definitely. I see it as a difficulty for some people.
Right.
Like the second generation, though, they do. Generally, the second generation that lives there, like, I wish I knew more Spanish. I don't know that much.
Yes.
You know, so I've seen that happen as well. But yeah, I do think it is kind of important. But at the same time, still maintaining. I know I am Colombian.
Yeah.
You know, like, you don't lose that part of you. But like, I think a lot of people, they think they take it too personally, and they're like, they don't want to speak English. You know.
Yeah. There's language. There's cultural differences.
Yeah.
Like in Iran, if you want to date a woman, you give her your phone number. In America, it's the other way around. So I had to like pick it up.
Yeah.
So but anyways, going back to your point, it's important to actually assimilate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, living in LA for a while and being around, you're Puerto Rico now.
Yeah.
And what have you noticed about the dating scene since you moved here to now? Because for me, I'm 46. From the time like I was managing a strip club back in like 2003 to now, the world has totally changed, and the most specific reason why is because of social media.
Right.
What have you noticed different?
Well, I'm married now, so it's a little different.
Yeah.
But I want to say online dating probably changed. Online dating, as in like hookup apps, probably changed the dating dynamics for the worse. I can tell you that. So. I think we as humans were not designed to have access to so many other potential mates so quickly and easily. It's not our DNA or is not designed to handle it. So I think that is creating an issue, because you can always have a date whenever you want on your phone, and you can now pay to boost your profile.
Isn't that crazy?
On these apps.
The pay to boost the profile. It's like the super hot girls don't have to pay. They don't have to pay to boost their profile.
So I was the first person to actually bring virtual currency to online dating apps. I mean, and the concept didn't exist. Yeah. And we did the boost, and I kind of regret having added that feature. But a lot of people have, a lot of apps have it, and it's pay to play.
The anthropologist Dunbar came up with the idea of Dunbar's number. It's about 115 people. If you look at U.S. military units, they're about that size. And that would be about the size that an ancestral tribe would exist. Once they got past that size, they would bifurcate into two different tribes.
Right.
And so what happened is the choice, the ability to choose from a certain set of partners. If I'm, going through puberty, I'm 15 years old, there's only maybe 10 to 20 people in my age group, half of them are female, and I know one of those people are who I'm going to breed with, period. And if I make a fool of myself in front of them, then I'm going to be unapologetically
Right.
my genetics are going to be weeded out of existence, which is why men have approach anxiety. And then also women understood if they slept with the wrong man and had a child by the wrong man, they were going to be ostracized from the tribe. They and their child would die, which is why women have apprehension whenever they sleep with someone.
They're
in the
very
first
selective, yeah.
For sure. That's where it comes from, the concepts in evolutionary psychology. But the idea that, like, you're right, we have so much choice. Again, you remember Steve Jobs, he took all those different iPods and turned them into just one iPod. Yeah. He's like, there was too much choice. And even if you go now, there's only like 3 sizes of MacBook. Or 2 sizes of iPhone. That's the whole kind of thing, is like you have too much choice. But here's where I think I'll take it one step further, is that people are, they're confused or bewildered by choice that they think they have, but they don't actually have. Right. Meaning men liking photos of women who would never piss on them if they were on fire. Right. And then comparing their current mate to that person. David Buss talks about this in The Evolution of Desire. If you show men pictures of really attractive women and then ask them about their spouse, they have more negative things to say about their spouse. It's like crazy stuff like that. The delinquent or the dilemma of choice, it just makes it much more difficult in all aspects. And it's not just that you can swipe and have a date. Even if you can't, you see these women who are like morbidly obese saying, I need a man who's 6 feet tall, makes 6 figures a year. You understand what I'm saying? Like they're doing that kind of stuff. And then men sitting there complaining about women, and these men haven't had sex in like 4 or 5 years. That's also what's happening. And I think the online dating has made that a problem as well.
It is a huge problem. I think it increased so if you think about it, we had a damper on, our desires. Like we were like, okay, so this is my dating pool, and we played inside that dating pool. So when you blow it up, then what happens is that, well, women all go for the top male, and men are not as selective, so they're like not committing and they're spreading their seeds, so to speak. So I mean, that it makes sense. If you open it up like that, then all the things that are programmed in us from an evolutionary perspective are no longer playing the purpose that we're supposed to play.
For sure. If I'm in a tribe, let's just say, let's say high school. You're in high school with 1,000 people. The head cheerleader, the hottest cheerleader is dating the quarterback of the football team. Right. Like this is the trope we've all seen a million times. And what happened is that but it's the quarterback of her football team, right? Not the neighboring school. What's happened is there is no Waco dating. There is no Waco dating scene. There is no Des Moines dating scene. There is no Wichita dating scene. Right. It's one global dating scene. And when a woman turns 18, if she's sufficiently attractive enough or looks so because she's using artificial intelligence to make her pictures look better, she gets scooped up and she's at Dan Bilzerian's party or Tai Lopez's party in Los Angeles, and she's meeting famous people. And so now that heart surgeon or accountant or a lawyer or doctor who lives in Wichita, Kansas, who was supposed to marry the cute girl, has no one to pick from. Right. And all the cute girls in those smaller cities are now in Miami. They're living in Brickell, or they're living in Los Angeles, or living in Las Vegas. And then so that we get this like huge disparity. And then you have 33% of men under the age of 30 having 0 sexual partners in the last year, and 26% of men under the age of 30 are a virgin. Yeah. That's where that whole thing comes from.
So at Zoosk, I did an experiment. I tried to solve that problem a little bit by preventing people from changing their zip code or location. So, and when they traveled, I didn't allow them to change it too often. So I tried to make dating local, because I was like, okay, but we're going to do. The problem is you lose to the competition. Yeah. Because the competition is essentially handing out candy. And if we're not doing that, we lose.
Yeah. So you're trying to make their lives better, and the competition is handing out dopamine.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. One of the other things I loved about this, we're always, tossing around ideas. You say great ideas shine, and you can identify them quickly. What are some of the things that you could identify? So there were several businesses. You saw how well Zoosk was doing, and you dropped all the other ones. Can you talk about what does that feel like, and what did you see to know that was going on?
Well, Zoosk was so explosive, I knew immediately. I want to say we were getting 50 to 100,000 signups a day.
Wow. So,
and this is like a week after launching it. So I knew right away that we just hit the jackpot. But it's not always that clear. A lot of times you have traction, or you think you don't have traction, but you just haven't created a good enough experiment to test that idea. So it's a little bit of art and science. So sometimes it's very obvious, but sometimes you gotta just have some faith in it. I think the difference between good entrepreneurs and average entrepreneurs is average entrepreneurs maybe have really good intuition, and some of them don't have good intuition, but they have good quant skills. Amazing entrepreneurs have both. So they have like pattern recognition, good intuition combined with math.
Yeah.
So that's how you win.
Yeah, the three partners. There's three of us in my company, and one is very clearly the technician. One of them's the manager, and one of them's the entrepreneur. I'm the technician. Like, I'm the one who does all the fulfillment, and I'm the one who finds the guests, and who does that. And one of my partners is the entrepreneur, and one of my partners is the manager. The manager has a master's degree in financial mathematics, and so we're always looking at metrics. We use Grafana in order to look at our KPIs. On different things, and like that's always when I get it on with my sales team, one of the first things I ask them is what worked this week.
Right.
What did I say on which podcast that got this guy to buy? And I'm going to say that thing again. Tell me every week. That's what I do to try to get them. Just try to get that feedback. I'm going to ask you about the depth and breadth argument. This is something I was talking about. I was at Tai's thing this weekend or last weekend, and the idea of like you building a brand, okay, and then the brand, you talk about everything,
right,
to try to bring things in, or viral content. You see, I saw Bradley, or I saw Alex Hormozy talk about dating the other day, or he took a shot across the bow at I can't remember who it was. He goes, I'd never make my bed, and I've made $100 million. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. Grant Cardone took a shot at Dave Ramsey the other day. He goes, yeah, pay off your debt if you want to stay in the middle class. I was like, damn, bro, I couldn't believe he said that. It was pretty cold blooded.
He's right.
Yeah. So those kind of things. Where do you fit along? So what I don't get my engagement. If I were to look at some of my friends who have way better engagement than I do, they don't get anywhere near the amount of revenue that we get. So there seems to be something where we're doing things that go viral to grow the total pie and to trigger the algorithm. But there are other things that we do specifically that don't go as viral, but they sell. They move units. Where do you fall on that? Doing both?
Yeah. I want to say depends on the scenario.
Yeah.
Give me a specific scenario.
Well, I mean, I think the scenario is like when I was, hanging out with Tai and he starts talking about, well, the Polish people, you guys are all good looking. Everyone thinks you're good. And I'm like, I don't know what we're talking about. Like Tai will go off on this long rant about the history of Homo sapiens and all this kind of stuff. And then at the end, he's selling a product on funnels. And I'm like, what happened here? How did I end up here? How do we end up in this place? And I interviewed him one time. I have to come up with a lot of questions, not with Tai. I can ask him one question and 4.5 hours later, we've finished the podcast. And we're talking about his dad getting stabbed when he was a kid. And you know what I'm saying? It's all kinds of stuff. And this guy was Maya Birkenroad, his cousin, his grandfather was a PhD at, I forgot where, it was a professor somewhere. And like, there's just all these stories that, you go down. He's a great example of what I'm talking about, like selling an info product.
Right.
Do you like that idea of like going viral in different places and then?
Yeah, I think sometimes that magic is hard to replicate.
Yeah.
So for people who are less like that, they need a formula.
Yeah.
And there are a few good formulas on how to convey a concept in a way that to build up to a sales, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a ton of VSL formulas people can look up. And honestly, ChatGPT does an amazing job. So
of writing the VSL?
Writing it. So try it and tell it specifically that you want it to be driving towards a sale.
Yeah.
And describe the audience, and it will blow your mind.
Yeah.
So it's really good.
One interesting conversation I had was about Graham Stephan and Ryan Pineda. They were both trying to start a fund. And Graham Stephan's programming or his content is always about saving money. And Ryan Pineda's was about taking out loans and debt so that you can buy properties. And Ryan Pineda, not surprisingly, had a much easier time raising money for his fund because his audience was a spend and borrow audience. And Graham's was a save and don't spend. And his main thing is like, I don't buy coffee because it's too expensive. I don't buy coffee. It's probably worth $100 million, but I don't buy coffee. That kind of thing.
That's a terrible life to live, in my opinion.
But you can build an audience like that. Right. Like I don't ever discourage my clients from buying other people's programs. Right. I want to get them in to buy the program. One of the stories I tell, Tai spends $200,000 a year or something like that buying other people's programs.
Right.
I encourage people to do other things, read other books, and just have an open mindset rather than trying to funnel them just into my place and say I'm the only answer.
Yeah, I mean the mindset of abundance. That's how I like to live my life. So just, try. I mean, zero-sum game is not correct. I mean, to think about it, I mean, we have made so much progress as a society. It's not a zero-sum game. We are all building and adding everyone's wealth. So it's not mathematically it's not.
Yeah.
So
Can you talk about what makes a good funnel?
yeah,
So you're selling software.
right.
What makes a good funnel? Is it video testimonials? Is it a long VSL? Like what works now that maybe didn't work? Like what has changed maybe in the last couple of years? What do you think is probably most effective?
So I tell you something that's going to blow your mind.
Okay.
So recently, when we remove videos from our landing pages, conversion rate goes up.
Yeah, we did the same thing.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened. We did it for a different reason. We were trying, so you saw my video, there's a bunch of girls in it.
Right.
We were trying to get approved by a certain, what's it called? Yeah, they do point of sale. What are they called?
Credit card processor.
Yeah, process. We were trying to get approved by a certain processor, and we knew that they weren't going to approve it, or we thought they might not approve it if they saw my content. So we took the video off, and conversions went up.
Yeah.
Just mind blowing.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
Hearing you say that, like it's crazy.
We tested it. In fact, him and I tested it multiple times, and every time, same result. It's actually mind blowing.
So do you put the VSL somewhere else, or do you just put it in the advertisement, or what do you do?
So in this new world of no video on landing page, I'm thinking how to. So first of all, we started running those videos as ads, even though they're long.
Yeah.
So see, I'll tell you how that turns out. That's a new experiment. I'm like, maybe they want to watch the video in the safety of their feed, and then when they click, you want to go straight to checkout.
Yeah.
So the sale happens on the feed itself. That's a theory. I don't know if it's correct, but I'm going to try that. The next thing is send a VSL via like an automated text or email right after, if they did not convert.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We do that for didn't finish filling out the process.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a big one. Wow. Okay. That's really interesting. Taking your most viral content and turning it into ads. Do you like that idea?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, for a variety of reasons. One of them is if your video is high engagement, the Facebook shows it for a lower CPM.
Yes.
So that's important. How cheaply you can reach people, essentially. So that's the first reason.
Do you, we have one ad's getting like 20 to 1 ROI.
Yeah.
Do you just keep increasing? Like at what point are you going to stop? When you break even? Like, do you want to just keep running the numbers up? What do you do there?
So if you're talking about me, I'm very aggressive.
Yeah.
So you probably have seen my ads. I just literally carpet bomb the internet. And the reason for that is I have a long time horizon.
Yeah.
So I'm building companies that customers are hopefully customers for a long time. So even if it's not breaking even, as long as I have it's within like 1 year break even, I'm okay with that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So Neil Patel told me, he was like, 7-figure company is running ads to make money. 8-figure company is running ads in order to break even so they can upsell you. And 9-figure company is running ads intending on losing money so that they keep you for a long time.
I am the last one.
The last one.
Yeah. It's like, it's a particular mindset. It's a little bit difficult to explain it to people.
Well, it's Netflix.
Yeah.
It's Amazon.
Yes.
Yeah. It's audible.com. Yeah.
Yes. At Zoosk, we lost money for many years. And towards the end, we were putting tens of millions of dollars of EBITDA.
So having those losing quarters, but at the same time,
losing years,
like what Uber and Amazon did, but so that you completely soak the market share,
right?
So that later on you've run all your competition out, your diapers.com and your, what was the shoe company I forgot that they bought? Zappos. You run all them out, and then from that point on, then you slowly you start making money off subscriptions, etc., like that, recurring revenue, and then. Man, Amazon has just changed my life, dude. I forget like how little I don't go into. Not only do I just buy everything from there, but it's like I just go to Kohl's sometimes if I have to return something, and they don't even return it. They just scan it, throw it in the trash. It's like so fast the way they're doing it. And it's just totally changed everything. But yeah, you're right. They were losing money for a long time. Now they're one of the most valuable companies in the world. So you think the garnering the market share is more important?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, depends on your objective. So if you're trying to build a small lifestyle business, no. Try to break even right away or make money right away. But if your time horizon is 6 to 10 years, it's okay to lose money at the beginning. So.
Okay, affiliates. What do you, if you were going to use affiliates for an offer, maybe for an info product or for your software, are you giving 50%? Are you giving 100%? Are you doing recurring revenue? Like how would you do it?
Yeah, so at Zoosk, we had a huge affiliate network. We were actually #1 affiliate for years in the country. So it is a love and hate relationship, I gotta tell you. So I try to be really generous. And because again, depends on what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to dominate and then win 5 years down the road, then you want all of them sending you traffic. So you can be aggressive.
Well, we intend on making another program and teaching other people how to make programs like we did. I have an $800 studio and we made a $6 million product off of it. I want to teach people how to do that. So for us, I was actually suggesting instead of 50% the first month, give them 100% the first 2 months.
Yeah.
100% the first 2 months, so that we can just like really. And the other thing about affiliates is because of the way short form affiliates existed before there was short form content. But now affiliates can use short form content to grow an affiliate account on TikTok or Instagram or X or Snapchat or Facebook. And then now they've got two things. Now they're making money through the account, and then the account is growing super fast. Ideally, they could even sell the account that's got 50,000 subs and change the content on the account or affiliate for someone else. And then they're growing your brand while they're making you money.
Right.
So to me, like making that whole thing work seems like that's how you go to 100 million a year.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, that if you do it right, if you crack the formula, it's a very powerful tool.
Yeah. Which is why I was saying like Andrew Tate was doing 20 million a month.
Right.
With that low ticket offer.
Right.
Because I don't even think they had more than 10 or 20,000 people, even that many in their high ticket. I think they had several 100,000 in their low ticket. And that's how they're making the money recurring. Not even doing live events or live Zoom calls or anything like that. That's so incredible.
Yep.
I coach 11 hours a week, and then I do one-on-ones. Like I'm just like I lose my voice trying to do all this stuff. But like what they were doing, that was pretty amazing. Giving away, try to give away value before you try to sell.
Right.
Can you go into that? Do you mean like a free offer? Do you mean just like going on podcasts and trying to give away as much free stuff as you can? Like what do you mean?
Yeah, I mean that's obviously has been around for a long time. But my observation these days is that people are becoming a lot more comfortable with buying low price point products. So sometimes you can accelerate, meaning you trying to give value gets actually in the way of sale, believe it or not.
Wow.
So I mean, it has changed over the years. So it used to be that you had to do a lot of nurturing before you can convince somebody to buy a $10 product. But I don't think it's that way anymore. People are willing to try low price point stuff easily. And sometimes by trying to explain too much, probably that explains why putting a VSL on a landing page is counterproductive.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
It's like, that might be the explanation.
It's really,
I think the world has changed.
Yeah. I think a lot of people bought Hustle University because they just liked Andrew Tate, and it was $47.
Yeah,
and they didn't really do that
point.
much. They didn't even do that much investigating. I think that like if someone loves your brand and watches your free content, $47, $99, $97 is something I think they would pay. So I think that's a really interesting concept. And then this is another one I love. Tai was the first one. He said this. He goes, "You think you want to be famous? You don't know what it's like being famous. The amount of scrutiny you get." And you said something I loved, which was the amount of hate you get is proportionally to the amount of money you make. It was there was a really funny conversation between Bradley and Grant Cardone where Brad calls him up and goes, "Dude, I see you everywhere on Facebook. Like you're like literally, there's too much here. I'm gonna have to block you because I see your ads every 5 seconds, and I think you're overexposing us, and I think it's gonna be a problem." And Grant said something to the effect of, "You don't buy anyway, motherfucker," and hangs up on him. Okay, this idea of the hate, I started getting it. And then at first I was angry, and then I started looking and I was like, oh, no one's liking this comment. Right. No one really cares. I was writing like dissertations about how this dude was wrong and come meet me here, bitch, and kind of stuff like that. Can you talk about how do you deal with it initially? How do you deal with it later? And then what does it actually mean as far as making money?
I actually said that exact sentence today to my team.
Yeah.
So because it's funny because so if you look at marketing, good marketing versus bad marketing, it's not like good marketing gets good reaction, bad marketing gets bad reaction. Bad marketing is ignored, okay, in reality. Good marketing is polarizing. So it's going to create some positives and some negatives. There is no effective marketing that everybody agrees on.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. Look at Elon Musk. I mean, it's like,
of course.
It's like completely polarizing. Yeah. So Marketing 101, don't get ignored. So that's literally what needs to happen. If you're not ignored, then you polarize. So it's part of the game. So yes, negative comments, means you're polarizing, which means your product is working.
You never, was there ever a point where you took any of it personal?
At the beginning, yeah. Especially when my mom was reading these comments.
Bro.
And it's like,
Let me tell you something right now. If somebody, obviously this will never happen, but if someone made a YouTube channel where all you did was like find internet trolls and take them out and start beating them with a bongo bat, I would subscribe $100 a month to watch that. If all I got to do was watch internet trolls get their ass beat, like go in the ring and just get whooped, getting drug around the street, I'd pay $1,000 a month to watch that. If somebody would make that show, bro. When I was joking, I was writing this one dude, I was like, hey, you know when Internet 3.0 comes out, we're going to be able to tokenize our interactions, and we're going to find you, all of you.
Yeah.
Bro, I was like, oh. But then here's a funny thing happened. So I like Mr. Beast. Like, I think he's a good content creator, but I can't watch his content. I can't watch PewDiePie's content, and I can't watch Logan Paul's content. It's just unwatchable for me as a 46-year-old man.
Right.
But they're clearly incredible engagement, like phenomenal.
Right.
And I was like, I didn't understand why this was happening. And of all people, it was John Zerka. I don't know if you know who he is.
No.
Like, dude's crazy. He's a flat earther. But he came to me. He goes, you know what? Where all these comments are coming from? And I was like, I don't know where they're coming from. I've talked to millionaires. Every guy I know that's successful. And I was like, how many YouTube comments have you left this month? And they're like, 0. I would never leave a YouTube comment. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I was like, where does these come from? And he explained to me, he goes, it's 15-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's kids that are being exposed to adult. When I say adult, I mean not kid content, like grown-up content, but they're kids. So it's Andrew Tate's Bugatti, or it's more plates, more dates than steroids and stuff like that, or it's Mr. Beast making a prank video, or it's, something like that. So they're little kids being exposed to adult theme, not adult, like not pornographic, but like adult as grown up content, Bugattis and watches and hot girls and stuff like that. And then it all totally made sense. I'm like, how come these negative comments are always on there, but whenever somebody does a super chat on my YouTube, it's always nice? And I was like, oh, because the guys with super chats have jobs. They don't live in their mom's basement.
Right.
And I was like, I didn't understand it at first, but then I started to understand. This is where like the vast majority of my negative comments come from. It's some 16-year-old kid who like thinks that he knows something.
Yeah, it's not just 16-year-old kids. So there's a study on this.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the psychopathy.
Yeah, it is psychopathy. So, and obviously people, so there are a couple of things. One, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a question for David Buss, I think your narcissism goes down as you age.
Yeah.
So like kids are very narcissistic.
There's a book about this. What happens to narcissists when they get to be 70. It's like they just don't have the same level because they also don't have the same level of testosterone.
That's right.
So they start to lose their psychopathy, just almost like the knife dulls after a while. Yeah.
So probably those teenagers make sense. I mean, they have no problem going online and like trashing people.
Yeah.
So, and they take pleasure out of it.
Yeah.
It is a way for them to express themselves. So
there is a study. I wanted to look that up because I was going to post it on my next show on Thursday. There's a study that shows the correlation between internet trolls and psychopathy.
That's right. And I think I saw it in 2000, if I'm not mistaken. Look it up. It's probably 2018, 19, something like that.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and totally correlated.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Like, would you go and spend time putting a comment on a random ad on Facebook? I mean, who does that? So, yeah.
Okay, so I want to tell you something. This is one of the coolest things I ever saw. There's a book by a doctor named Martha Stout. It's called The Sociopath Next Door. It came out in 2005. 20 years or 15 years later, she comes out with another book called it's called Confronting or Dealing with the Sociopath, Defeating the Sociopath Next Door, Conquering the Sociopath. That's what it's called. And I go look at the reviews. The first book was phenomenal. It was pop psychology, but it was a simple way of understanding antisocial personality disorder that like most people didn't understand because they don't there's still this misconception that you can cure sociopaths, et cetera, because they watch Walter White or Tony Soprano and like he's good sometimes and he's bad sometimes. And I think that's really damaging to the population. When someone's a sociopath, there is no saving them.
Right.
So she writes the book. She expresses all this stuff. She talks about how to pick out sociopaths, and for that field, it actually is the best book probably ever written on this concept. So her second book comes out, and I haven't read it, but I go look at the reviews. Do you want to guess what the reviews were?
No, tell me.
They trashed her, and they was like, "This book is terrible. I can't believe this. There's just pop psychology," and I was like, "Man, that sucks." Her first book was so good. man, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to read the book anyway. And it was phenomenal, Alex. It was better than the first book. And I was like, why is she getting so many bad reviews? And I was like,
psychopaths.
Every psychopath, because what had happened is over the last 10 years, there's these psychopaths who were basically like dug out and exposed because of this book. And this was their penance. They were trying to go back after her. It is one of the weirdest. If you guys want to do it, go look up the reviews for Conquering the Sociopath Next Door. The book is 10 out of 10 phenomenal. And every bad review on there, I'm telling you, is an antisocial personality disorder, clinical psychopath who is telling you to not read this book. It was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen when I saw that. Like, this is real. Like,
That's good.
These trolls are real.
That's good. And there definitely psychopathy is out there. And it manifests itself because most people, if you think about it, most people who have psychopathic tendencies, they wouldn't show it in physically.
Sure.
Because they will get hurt.
Yeah.
So, but internet gives them a medium.
Yeah.
To express that, satisfy that need without actually getting hit. So that's I think is the game changer.
Do you remember that guy who was talking shit to Mike Tyson on the airplane and he turned around and started beating his ass?
Yeah.
I promise you, I will bet you any amount of money if we go through his search, through his Google or whatever, we're going to find some YouTube troll comments.
Yes.
Because that guy got so comfortable and used to talking shit and nobody doing anything about it. And like legitimately, I promise you, he felt privileged enough to say those things to Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Not realizing that the world is still real, even though the internet allowed him to get away with that. I promise you, this is the same.
Yeah.
This is like delusion that happens.
Yeah.
This concept of firing 1% of your customers. So this is something I also notice is that like when I have a guy who comes on and he does a 20K paid in full, he is the best customer. He is the best client ever. He follows all directions. He gets massive improvement. He has full buy-in. He's phenomenal. Best clients. We end up hiring some of these guys to work for us. When the guy is haggling on our lowest ticket offer, this guy ends up becoming becomes a very difficult client. He questions everything that we try to tell him. He takes no action. You mentioned something about the idea of you having 40,000 people in a group and you hear the same 10 names.
10 names.
Can we just fire these people?
Yeah, 100%. Actually, I noticed it. So at Zoosk, we had 3 floors. One of the floors was just customer support.
Yeah.
So I would walk there like 3 times a week, and I heard the same names. I felt like, weren't we like it's Wednesday? Weren't you guys talking about this guy like a Monday? And you're talking about a company that had millions of customers.
Yeah.
They were talking about the same few people like every day. I'm like, wait, can we just remove these people and give their money back and just kick them off our platform? We don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
That's how that idea started. I think you need to remove like 1% minimum of your customers.
You need to just make a quota to do it.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, yes. So you say, you name 1% out of 100 that we need to fire today.
Yeah.
So,
you know what? I may actually go on my calls and express like, hey guys, I just want to let you know, like we're just going to start removing some of the clients. Like whoever the most problematic people are, we're just going to remove it. Even if you aren't problematic, we're going to find someone to remove just because we need to call you do it with the sales team. Yeah. The sales teams will like remove the bottom 15% of the sales team. Yeah. One thing I thought was interesting is the concept that Dr. Buss comes up with, or you come up with in just genetics in general, was the idea is the heritability of intelligence.
Yes.
And Tai talks about this a ton.
Right.
Your father's a physics professor, or he's a physics teacher, and your mother's a statistician.
Right.
Yeah. What was that like growing up in that house?
Very education oriented and math oriented.
Yeah.
So it was education, everything. My dad gave me brain teasers and physics problems before I even went to elementary school. So that's how it felt like. Yeah. So, and always the feeling that you're never good enough.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Interesting.
So yeah.
Since you've had some exposure to Dr. Buss, this concept of this is just what I believe: the idea of psychology being a soft science, right? Evolutionary psychology being a hard science, right? And evolution and all psychology actually being under the umbrella of evolutionary psychology. Dr. Buss agreed with this idea. Do you see it that way?
I do. Yeah. And I tell you, like, as part of my PhD research, I use genetic algorithms. Genetic algorithms is when you mimic evolution in engineering systems. So you take a bunch of things and you evolve them and you eliminate and all that. It's insane to see that the concept of evolution works when you apply it to designing power tools, as an example. Yeah. Or pickup trucks. Yeah. Same thing. You have pickup trucks. The best ones mate. They have baby pickup trucks. Yes. You just encode the design into a DNA. and it works. So I think at this point there's no doubt that a lot of who we are is just informed by evolution. So especially evolutionary psychology, because it's not just our physical attributes, it's like what we do with our bodies, that what we do, like how we behave in the society. So anyways.
I know, you have Freud and Jung, and they had their hypothesis when they were growing up. And a lot of the stuff that Freud said, even though he did have some pretty interesting hypotheses, turned out to not be true. Right. But a lot of what he said was coming from, his meetings with a 12-year-old boy while he was snorting cocaine. That's not very scientific. Right. But he is a psychologist. He's a psychiatrist, that is a science. And so what I thought was interesting is in the 1970s, the ideas of like, hey, let's just actually do population level surveys of these things and find out if these things are real. And I think what happened was some of them turned out to be very unflattering for humans in general and the genders specifically. And because of that, I feel like there's this massive pushback on, I feel like evolutionary psychology is the most underrated player in the game, right? Yes. It's that undrafted left tackle who turns into an all-pro and nobody knows his name. Like that's what it feels like to me. Everything in evolutionary psychology is falsifiable, but everything in behavioral psychology isn't.
It's not, yeah.
And because it's falsifiable, then someone tries to falsify it, and no one ever does. The parental investment hypothesis is an idea from evolutionary psychology, which is in any two gender species, the species that does more of the child rearing is always going to be the more selective of the two genders, and there is no exception to this. In every two gender species, they've looked far and wide to try to find it, and there's even a case where there's a certain type of fish and seahorse where the males carry the eggs and they are the pickier of the two genders and the females fight for them. So like it's one of these situations where like in evolutionary psychology, they have a hypothesis, they use the scientific method to test it, and the rest of psychology doesn't do this. The rest of psychology looks at one thing and be like, oh, that's a controlling behavior, or this person is like, they sit there and they throw out the word narcissist when they don't even know what that term means. That's what it feels
anecdotal.
like. Anecdotal. The rest of psychology feels very anecdotal and soft, and evolutionary psychology feels hard, but because of the unflattering way that it poses human beings, it questions the idea of free will. It makes us seem far closer to our ancestors as hairless murder apes. It compares us very much to other primates and shows that the primates have very similar characteristics to us. It uses examples from the rest of biology to come up with ideas on why humans are the way that they are. And it's really, like, to be fair, some of the conclusions come across are very uncomfortable for people. And so there's a massive pushback. Have you seen that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the question is, so here's how I think about it. Do I prefer to be told that make me feel good about myself but are untrue? Or do I prefer to know the
I will
truth?
tell you the majority of the universe, the majority of the world wants the first.
Yeah, of course. It is a protection. It's a self-preservation mechanism that we have. But I prefer to know the truth.
I would rather know the truth.
Because once I know the truth, then I can strategize around it. For example, you can build products that actually work better because you understand it. There's a Netflix documentary about chimps. I'm blanking on his name. Have you watched it?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Okay. It's funny. It follows the story of a few chimp tribes, and it is so close to humans. Like when I was watching it, I was like, this is like, we're almost there.
Yeah, their genetic code is 1.5% off of ours. And when you consider like a species, like say some alien species that would have the same genetic code, but they're 1.5% more advanced than us, then they have like Dyson spheres and interstellar travel.
Right.
You know, it's just that 1% of genetics.
It makes all the difference.
Then all of a sudden we go from like using a stick to get ants out of a log to, throwing fecal matter at each other to like, the space race. That's just 1% different. Yeah, man, I just thought it was really interesting because like it was so incredible to me that it took years of Joe Rogan living in Austin, Texas, a couple of blocks away from David Buss before he had him on the show. And it took Jordan Belfort, who doesn't really understand evolutionary psychology that well, to finally tell Joe Rogan to have David Buss on. And Joe Rogan, his insignia is a monkey. Like it was just like, to me, it was like, there's something here where this whole field of study is just being hidden from the world.
Yes.
And it's so, I was looking for evolutionary psychology podcasts. You know how many there are? One. There's one. It's called Beat Your Genes. And it's these 3 PhDs. I don't know if it's still around anymore. And then there's mine. And then I can't find another one. Maybe Chris Williamson, he's dabbling in this kind of stuff. But it's very rare that you find anyone getting into this. I'll tell you an example. There is a study that was done in the mid 90s And then there's a subsequent study done by Dr. Buss, which basically went over how many previous sexual partners a woman had before she got married and the likelihood of her divorcing and the likelihood of her cheating. And you and I know, before we do the study, what the answer is going to be.
Yes.
There's obviously a correlation. It's just like, it's so beyond obvious that there's going to be a correlation. Well, of course, they do the study, and of course, there's a correlation. If a woman's been with like 20 men or more, there's like a 17% chance she stays in a marriage. The likelihood of her cheating increases as she's been with more men. And of course, the study they do in, I think it's a university in Turkey that was doing some of these studies, and they continue to do them. But the one in the U.S., like they did one, and they found out this data, and no more studies. No more. No,
Because they don't want to cancel.
No more funding for this. We're not finding out that women who sleep with a lot of men are bad wives. No, we can't do these studies. And I was telling my friend about this, and I was like, so if you disagree with this concept, then find a study that says something different. Because I promise you right now, if there was a study done by like Marquette or University of Maryland that showed that as women had more sexual partners, there was zero correlation to divorce, you would instantly win the Nobel Prize in psychology. Instantly win the Nobel Prize. But because you find a positive correlation between the two, it's an unflattering view of women, and therefore these studies cannot be published. Same thing happened to Satoshi Kanazawa, who wrote what's the book? Beautiful People Have More Daughters with David Allen. Yeah. He published a study showing that African American women and Asian men have the hardest time on dating apps. Canceled once he posted the study, and the study was totally based in fact, in reality. He's Japanese. He has no interest in this whatsoever. Like, he's not trying to troll anybody. He's literally a Japanese man. He's literally the cohort that he's complaining, that he's saying has a disadvantage. And he was canceled. And I've tried to have him on my show. He doesn't want to come on because of the fact that he's like, I'm worried I'm going to get canceled.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy that we're at this place?
Academia is like that. It's just these guys I mean, universities are, I lived in academia for a while. It is like that.
Yes. Yeah. The other thing is the concept of reading. We talked about this before. I got addicted to audiobooks and then getting back into reading when I was in the military. We'd fly these 10-hour missions over Iraq and Afghanistan. And Tai, with his book club, I have a book club too, similar to Tai's. And a lot of the first books, the first time I interviewed Tai, it was probably 2013, I had read 44 of the books on his book list before I interviewed him. I had so many questions for him. And I just want to, then you hear about these billionaires and they go off for a retreat for a week and all they do is read. Can you talk about the importance of that, which led you to the concept of Mentorbox?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's funny. I used to gift a lot of books to my friends, and I realized they don't actually even open the book. So that was one of the reasons for Mentorbox, try to actually unpack books for people in a different way. But it's important. It's important to take time off and just physically remove yourself from your regular environment, and go into a new environment, read and think. Yeah, it's super important. That's how you get the ideas. Because I mean, most of my time every day is not spent on doing tasks that would be too basic. Yeah. So most of my time every day is thinking about what to do, because most of the time you got it like that. It's not about amount of effort that you put out. It's like how effective you are when you actually move. Yes. So that's something that I see people are missing. I wish there was a button you could press and just convey that concept to people.
The other idea was I see guys getting addicted to the self-help book. Right. And I've tried to mix in 2 self-help books, 1 fiction. Right. Do you do that as well? Do you have a mix where you throw the fiction in there?
I actually don't read self-help books that much anymore. So mostly I read fiction I like. Yeah. I used to have a routine. I used to read fictions on the weekends and then business books and biographies during the week. So that's what I used to do. But that's one way to handle it. Fiction helps. Fiction is good.
I'll tell you, for physics, Andy Weir's books are phenomenal. The Martian, Artemis, and Hail Mary.
I've heard of him.
Also, Ken Follett. He is a historical fiction writer, and he made World War I, World War II, and the Cold War just so much more digestible. He writes this thing called the Century Trilogy, where basically he has it's real things that happened in history, but it's like a fake person who witnessed it, and it's just so fascinating the way he tells it like that. He also does one on the plague back in the 15th century. He does it's called Pillars of the Earth. Series that he does. It's phenomenal when you see this, the way he does it. And I just like reading books that are I think The Martian is one. I make all my clients read The Martian. I think The Martian is one of my favorite self-help books of all time.
I gotta read it.
he's stranded on Mars, and the first line of the book is, "Now I knew I was fucked." That's the very first line, and he uses math, reason, and logic to find a way to get off Mars. And at no point does he feel sorry for himself. It's just such a great example, is why I love that book so much. But yeah, I got into a glut where it's like everything is never eat alone, and then it's like buy back your time, and then it's like one guy after another who just like drinks mushroom tea and does yoga and explaining to me about how I need to triple my output and 10x this, and I'm like, oh my god, bro, I just want to read I read spy porn too. Love some Mitch Rapp and some Jack Ryan stuff like that. But yeah, getting into that. And you also talked about the skimming of the books, the way it's the table of contents, first chapter, last chapter. Like how do you go through that?
I mean, it's just books are written linearly, but most books should not be consumed linearly.
Yeah.
In fact, most of the book can be just thrown away. It's just supporting material.
Yeah.
So it depends on the book, but a lot of times you want to get the gist of the book first. I had a workshop on this at Mentorbox, in fact. So you get the gist of the book first, and then you start digging into areas that are actually applicable to you, because that's what you would remember.
Yeah.
So when you're reading the book, even if it's a biography, you're like, okay, so this piece of like Rockefeller's biography, this piece is applicable to what I'm doing right now. I identify it, then I read that in detail. This other piece, like his love life, I couldn't care less. So I'm not going to read about it. So that's kind of like how a lot of people try to consume books linearly.
You don't care what Oppenheimer's sex life was.
No, not at all. I
not
just
worried
could
about
not.
it.
I really don't care.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
This is another concept I started thinking about, is the way college education has become less useful and more expensive.
Right.
And now people sell courses where I can learn Amazon FBA, I can learn wholesaling, I can learn website design, how to build a funnel, and how to become a high-ticket salesperson for a course that usually costs less than $5,000 and sometimes way less than that, compared to a $400,000 or $700,000 degree from Harvard. Can you go into that? Has that been something you've noticed recently?
For sure.
I'm a Longhorn. I love going to UT Austin.
Right.
It was one of the best experiences of my life. I paid $6,000 a year in tuition to go there in state. I love the fact I still network with Longhorns. I'm pretty sure Dr. Buss came on my show because he's a Longhorn. I'm very proud of him. I watch him every week on Saturdays. Okay, love Longhorns. But when I look at it now, like the concept of me not going to college was just anathema. I was going to go to college. When I look at it now, I feel the same way. I want to tell people the same thing. And then I look at the prices for universities and see that these kids are just basically indoctrinated into nonsense.
Right.
And then I'm just like, I don't know how to justify this anymore.
Yeah.
It was fun. Dude, when Texas versus Texas A&M, that was a great time, bro. You know what I'm saying? Texas and Oklahoma. I loved being in college then. The girls, oh man, I love this place. And I learned about astronomy and physics and all this it was incredible. I enjoyed this. And now I look at it now and I'm like, why would I even go to this? What is the point?
Right. So I think the courses that you're talking about, they are the modern day trade school.
Yeah.
So it's very useful and all that. I think university, if you know why you're going to university, like you have a specific reason, you want to become a scientist, you want to become a doctor, you want to become a pharmacist, something like that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you want to become an entrepreneur and then you're going and getting a degree in history, that makes zero sense.
You know what makes even less, what just also doesn't make sense, is getting a degree in entrepreneurial studies from a business school. like 100%. It's like the guy who's teaching me, why aren't you a billionaire?
Yeah. So undergrad business, I mean, MBA, you can make an argument. It's like a networking opportunity.
Agreed.
But undergrad business, definitely don't. Why?
I will definitely tell you, as an officer in the military, I had to get an undergraduate degree. So that was useful there. And I don't regret being in the military for 1 second.
Right.
That part, you're correct. It was a trade. I want to be an accountant. I want to be a lawyer for sure. But you're right. For the rest of them, it just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It really doesn't. And the other thing that I think is funny is there's a funny story about this guy. They're building a house. He goes down. He takes his son through the house while they're building it. He sees a plumber on the ground. The plumber's like fixing up the pipes, and you can see his ass crack or whatever. And the guy looks at his kid. He goes, see, this is why I want you to go to college, so that you don't end up becoming a plumber like this. Plumber stands up, turns around, and goes, fuck you. I make $300,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. There's just been so much of a push towards either people not working, collecting that stimmy check, trying to work online, becoming a Twitch streamer, that we need people who can be carpenters and plumbers and electricians.
100%.
This is the reason why this housing crash that was supposed to happen never happened, is because there was never enough supply, because you still have to hire human beings to build houses.
Yes.
Until we have 3D printed houses, that's the way it's going to stay.
Which is coming.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree with the 3D. Yeah, for sure. 3D printed houses, GMOs, you're going to be fucking robots, and then the bifurcation of the species, and women are going to have babies with other women. That's what's happening in the future. Get ready for it. You heard it here first. Awesome. The concept of social proof. I love this. This is obviously my course is nothing but social proof. We talk about pre-selection, social proof, sexy sons hypothesis, the mate choice copying, using social proof, and the other concept is objection removal. Whenever you're talking about sales, do you deal with phone sales teams, or is most of your products just basically click on?
No, we have phone. I've built a couple of sales teams myself. For different products.
Can you talk about what's been effective for you as far as that concerned? The objection removal is obviously a big one.
Yeah. So,
by the way, I was going to make my low ticket offer, half of my low ticket offer, nothing but objections, nothing but just dealing with objections.
Yes.
I was going to have like guys who were short ask me questions about, if I'm short, will this work for me?
Right.
And then showing pictures of them being short, surrounded by women.
Yes.
Like I was going to deal with objections in the low ticket.
That same concept applies in high ticket too. So I call that demonstration. So it's like, there was a time when you just put testimonials and videos of people saying how awesome you are and all that on the landing page, and it worked. I don't think it works that much. It's just everybody's doing it. Everybody understands it.
Yeah.
All landing pages look the same. So what we are trying to do now is to demonstrate, like literally show in a video live, this person is doing this thing that you also want to do, not them talking about it. I'm trying to capture them, like at Deal.AI, I'm trying to capture entrepreneurs in the process of buying a business. I documented like a reality TV show. So it's very different. Like if the same person came here and talked about it, is very different than us having cameras showing them going through the process of buying a business.
That's amazing. So don't talk about it, be about it.
Be about it.
Yeah.
Demonstrate. So that's what we were trying to do.
Yeah, Rollo says demonstrate, do not explicate.
Yeah.
That's what we try to do in our. So I teach a networking course, but like I'll teach the networking course, and then the week I do it, I'll have 55 girls show up to my birthday party.
Exactly.
And then I'll have Dan Bilzerian come on my podcast, and then I'll go speak at Tai Lopez's event, and then I'll go on Brad Lee's podcast. So I'm teaching you networking while networking.
Right.
So I that's definitely worked for us. Remember I told you the ad that had 26 to 1 ROI? It was me talking about high status networking, and it was nothing but me in B-roll, candid video with just celebrities and whatever, and that worked really well for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying instead of the testimonials, show you're doing the thing.
Show it.
Yeah.
Show the process even. So don't just show the results, show the process. Show actual humans going through a process to getting that particular result. You can start with the result, but then show the details.
I love it. I think I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to show the result of a client doing well, and then work backwards, or even have him explain how it worked. Yeah, that'll definitely work. Another thing I loved was when people, my friend Tom Sosnoff talked about this, take the money when you can get it, not not later on when you need it. And then you also talked about try not to need the money. Try to have the ability to walk away from a situation so that people don't have leverage over you. Can you talk about that? Like you're expanding, maybe you're looking for seed capital, or you're looking for, funding in order to expand your business.
Yeah, that principle applies to every aspect of my life, honestly. I call it the principle of least interest. So in any negotiation, in any deal, the party that has the least amount of interest has the upper hand.
Yeah.
So I try to be always a person who doesn't give a shit if a transaction goes through or not. And doesn't matter if it's capital raising, it's sales, or all that. So it's just part of my personality too. I actually honestly don't care. So it also shows, and I apply that in marketing, I apply that in sales, I apply that in capital raising.
Yeah, guys worth over $100 million who do start businesses because they like winning.
Yeah, you like winning.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean I have to deal with you.
Yeah.
Either we do a deal or we don't. And the fundraising, the same concept, and that's what I like about. That's why the podcast you're referring to, I was talking about like raising more capital than you need.
Yeah.
Because it puts you in that position.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, definitely, man. I just love that concept of like being able to, say you got to be able to walk away.
Right.
And man, sometimes we don't want to, sometimes it'll be a great deal, and then we come to the realization this just isn't going to work.
Right.
Same thing with a girl.
Right.
Like I actually think, the neighborhoods in in Texas with like the lowest rate of crime. You know what they have in common? Dual legal gun ownership. And they have fences around the houses. No crime. You want to know why? Because everyone knows, like, let's mind my own business. He's going to mind his own business. If someone breaks into my house, he's going to come help me. This is a safe neighborhood because we have boundaries and we understand these boundaries. I understand if you want to do a deal with me, you keep raising the price. Oh, wait, well, you said it was $25,000 last week. Now it's $35,000 because he thinks he can jerk me around. He doesn't respect my boundaries. But you can't do that unless you have the ability to walk away. When I meet people who are like really wealthy and they do this kind of stuff, it's like they still enjoy winning, but like, I love this concept, which is the concept of money does not buy you happiness, but it does allow you to eliminate some of the bullshit that other people have to deal with.
Right.
And you don't have to tolerate disrespect or, you know, people offending your boundaries nearly as much.
Yeah, but I tell you, it's also a mindset. So even when I didn't have money, in general, I didn't care. So
just don't care attitude. There you go.
I don't care. So it's like, doesn't matter. It's like, you can't impress me. I don't care. I will walk away if I don't like you.
I love it.
So I feel like that even when I didn't have any money.
I love it.
So I think it is a winning attitude in life.
Yeah.
So if you there is such thing as trying too hard. So you got to be smart, and you got to, obviously, if you're trying to do a deal, in any aspect, even if you're applying for a job, you want to be intentional and smart about it, and you want to be effective in how you apply the effort. You don't want to be beggy. You don't want to come across as you're trying too hard. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You're an effective person, not a person that is like super aggressive going after something.
Yeah.
So
that's the best, man.
Yeah.
Ability to walk away, having some level of abundance.
Yeah.
Awesome. Alex, thank you so much, man. What do you have coming up in the future?
Well, I'm working on Deal.AI and doing a lot of these acquisitions. So that's my focus. And I'm going to capture it and put it out as videos for people to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. I'm excited to see that. Where can people find you?
At Dr. Alex, doctor spelled out on Instagram.
Okay. Yeah. And do you have additional products besides, you're just doing one at a time right now? Do you have 30 companies at the same time?
So yes, but I always apply my effort to one thing at a time.
Got it.
So right now I'm working on Deal.AI and I'm loving it.
I'm excited, man.
Yeah.
We're going to see where the future brings us. Hey, man, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for coming out to Vegas for this. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Make sure you check out him and all this stuff. I love having these high IQ conversations, man. It's been very much a privilege. It's almost like Think and Grow Rich, where I get the ability to interview these incredible people and just keep the information for myself and then maybe hopefully be able to help you guys. I will see all of you next week.